And welcome to the show. We are getting closer and closer to the season. Welcome to the season. I mean, we've got dynasty drafts, we've got redraft drafts as we get closer here. I've noticed that a lot of redraft is starting a little bit sooner, and maybe that's because the preseason is a lot different than it was in the past. But I mean, there's still guys getting injured. Derek in the chat. What up, Derek? Yeah, Hammer says he's gonna be a little bit late, so we're waiting for Hammer. But what's good, Philip? What up, Philip? Kev, what's good, Kev? What up, Kevin? But yeah, what y'all got going on? Are y'all in like redraft form yet, or because I don't play a ton of redraft. I'm only in a few redrafts, and that's all like home league stuff. Yeah, a lot of hype this weekend. I mean, we saw some good things, and we saw some injuries. So I mean, things are happening. I mean, even for my team. I mean, JJ is out, which was very surprising because we didn't really know anything about it, and we still don't know. We still don't know like how bad it is or how long it's gonna take. Doing best ball right now. Okay, Derek. Yeah, that's the one thing I don't do much of. I don't do much best ball. I don't do much best ball. One more redraft. Kev said, "Okay, what's good, Josh? What up, Will? What up, Will? You buying JJ? The quarterback JJ or wide receiver JJ? If you need a quarterback, or not even necessarily need, but if you're a rebuilding team, then yeah, I would be looking to purchase JJ for cheap right now if you can. What are you paying? I mean, you're paying at least a first. You got to think like what other people who have JJ paid for him. They paid what, the 1.5, the 1.6, 1.7. You know, so they paid a lot. So if you can get him for a single first, but do you even want to do that? Do you want to even pay a single first? Like, is it worth paying the single first, or do you just wait till next year and see and see what lands next year? Because I probably don't want to give up an early first, and then if I'm rebuilding, then it's most likely going to be an early first. So can we get somewhat creative? Can we do, a second and a piece? See what that team needs. Mm. The other problem is the people who had JJ like understood that he wasn't going to start anyway right away. So are they going to be willing to even give him up? It's got to be for something they need, and more than likely, you can probably do that during the season, right? When points are being scored, right? When they desperately need something and you have what they need, and you can snag JJ that way. Yeah, I'm with you, Goku. I'm with you. I mean, the mindset's always dynasty, um, but I'm not messing up my redraft. I've shifted, right? So in redraft, like I'm drafting running backs. Y'all know I hate running backs, but in redraft, in most redrafts, it's relatively shallow. So you need to have some good running backs. And there are a ton of wide receivers. So, can you take advantage of that in redraft where you are, going running back, which I've done in a couple leagues. Understanding that there are some wide receivers, down there that you can get, or some veterans maybe that you can get late, right? I mean, Cup has been like a target of mine in all drafts because you can get them so late, like it's worth the risk at that point, you know? Chaotic. What up, Philip? How you feel about Jordan Whittington? I mean, I don't know. He's a guy. I'm not going out there and buying him. It's preseason. We'll see what happens. I mean, stash him. It's fine if you want to stash him, but the chances are just extremely low. I'm okay with stashing him. Diaz, what up, Diaz? Albert, what's good, Albert? In redraft, are we moving CeeDee Lamb down at all? No, I mean, chances that it gets into the actual season are probably slim, but no, I'm not necessarily moving him down. Not for me anyway. Do you want to feel safer and go somewhere else? I mean, the chances he actually is going to miss actual games is probably slim. At some point, Jerry just got to pay him. I mean, you got to stop being a dick that he is. Mhm. He just wants everybody to know he's the damn boss. So, but yeah, I think they'll pay him eventually. But nah, I'm not moving him down. Too many rookies in redraft. Yeah, you got to be careful of that too. I mean, down late in the draft, like sure, you can take a chance on some rookies, but for the most part, you're taking, you're the best player available. So yeah, got to be careful with that. I think rookies. I mean, I've drafted a bunch of running back, some backup running backs like Corum, right? I'm okay with that. It just depends how deep your league is, with the Keon Coleman's, McConkey's. I'm okay with them as well when you get down to a certain point. Yep, yeah, hop in the Discord if you're not in the Discord. Shit, I should pull it up. I'll put the link in the chat. So if you do want to get in the Discord, it's a free Discord. We talk Dynasty pretty much every day. CD and Chase value as far as like what they're worth. I mean, they're still all top guys. They're the cream of the crop. They're with JJ, Amon Ra. I mean, you're still paying at least like 3 firsts for any of these dudes or the equivalent to that. All right, Discord is in the chat. So if you're not in there, hop in there. I have CMC. And by the way, I think Chase has a huge season. As long as Burrow is healthy, I think they go off. It's just a matter of health. That's really all it is. I have CMC in one dynasty, which I have a super team. Okay, thinking of offloading him. Sell at a high. What do you think I could get? Yeah, I mean, if you can pivot to a Bijan or a Gibbs, like I'm fine with that. You can stay in the running back range. I mean, that's what I'd probably do. The problem with CMC is like his value is crazy. It's like you can't get what he's really worth, and people don't want to pay what he's really worth. So, it's one of those things where it's hard to come off and it's hard to buy as well because you don't want to pay too much. But listen, if you got a super team, I mean, if you can move CMC, add something to it maybe to get a Bijan or a Gibbs or a Brees. If you can get one of those guys, then I do that. If not, can you tear down and get a first for, the next tier of guys? Or can you pivot to wide receiver, right? You got to attack a team that really is going to need CMC, and for the most part, they're not going to want to give up some of their guns that are going to be scoring for them and some of their young talent and value. So, can you got to snag maybe some younger guys, or you're going to have to grab some picks. Maybe you can grab like a Jonathan Brooks right now, right? That owner probably wants the points of CMC. Can you grab a first on top of that, a first plus maybe for a team that is trying to win? So really, you just got to find a team that could use CMC and then kind of attack it that way, depending on what they have on their team. Because not every team is going to be able to get CMC or even make sense for them to get CMC. Danny P, what up, Danny? A lot of Vidal, Burton, and Benson late in drafts. I'm okay with the run. Yeah, I mean, running backs are running backs. I'm okay with that. Burton, I mean, I haven't drafted him. Um, I mean, if you have a deep enough bench, like I'm okay with it, but he's probably somebody you can pick up off of waivers because he's most likely not going to make an impact like early on in the season. It might take him a little bit, or usually, right? We see the second half of the season, or an injury happens, maybe. So that's the only thing with Burton is, he's a wide receiver 3 flex at best, right? A Tyler Boydish. And then you're hoping for an injury, really. You might not get him one on one. You might have to add something. Yeah, I mean, you're taking the younger guy, they're taking the older guy. So yeah, you definitely probably got to add something. What do you have to add? I don't really know. Everybody's a little different with CMC. I don't know, your league well, but is it a shit? Is it a first? Is it somebody else that you have on your team? I don't know what other assets you have on your team, but see what that guy needs. That's all it is. You got to persuade him to give one of those guys up and take on a CMC. And I know that might be tough because it's like, well, if you got Bijan or Brees, like, why would you want CMC? So you definitely need a haul. But, like I said, maybe you tier down to the next tier, right? What about the Jonathan Taylors? I was going to say maybe Kyron, right? Kyron, HN, Saquon. A9, James Cook. I mean, depending how far down you go, like you get assets on top of it. What do you think the value is for the 101 Superflex Dynasty Startup 14-man league? I mean, it's not much different than the 12. It's just more valuable. Just more valuable because now it's 14. It's 14 teams and it's Superflex. So quarterbacks are at a premium. Typically we're talking about what, at least like 3 firsts for the 101. You're talking about maybe 4 at this point if you're talking if it's a 14-man league, it's gotta be at least in the 3, 4 first range of value. It's funny because every team's trying to beat me, so everybody needs to win. I could entertain CMC and get the 105 and the 106 from a guy who owns both picks. Could get the 105 and the 106 for this particular draft? Okay, so you didn't have your rookie draft yet. Is it Superflex? Like how many starters is it? I mean, Superflex, you're talking about what, a quarterback or Odunze, maybe Bowers if it's tight end premium. And then what can you do with the 105 and 106? Is that how valuable is that to your league? Depending on the format, like what can you do with that? What can you buy for that? Pickens in London, Danny said. What about him? Pickens is Pickens has always been a guy that I've said to just sell. Not that I don't like him or I don't believe in him. We know he's a great player and he can make some of these crazy catches, but for Dynasty, he's a wide receiver too, and he's just in that range of guys that like the team is already trying to get Ayuk. Like they don't view him as a bona fide like star number one wide receiver. And I think they'll always try to, improve that room. And so that kind of limits his upside a little bit and tells you kind of what the team thinks of him. So take advantage of the value of Pickens and people's hype of Pickens. And I'm not saying that he's not going to go off this year, like because he absolutely could go off. He's literally like the only guy there. So I do think he'll have a great season. But I do think that they'll still try and find somebody to put across from him, just like they're trying to do now. And again, that just kind of limits his upside. So can we take advantage of the value, of Pickens, whether that's now or during the season when he's putting up points and cheer up to those next wide receivers, right? Can we cheer up to to the Londons, to the AJ Browns, to the Pukas, right? How close can you get to JJ, to Chase, to Amon Ra, to Marvin? Because let's say like Ayuk does get traded to the Steelers. Like right there, all the value is shot on Pickens right there. And you lose all of that value, all of that value that you had to be able to trade him because he's valued relatively high. He is a good like in drafts right now, especially in redraft, like he's he's going at a good cost where like I don't mind him. And Goku said, thanks, love the vibe in the Discord. Appreciate you, Goku. Will said, yeah, it is super flex. Two running backs, three wide receivers, tight end, two flex, and eight IDP. Also on the 102, 110, and 201. Okay, so you got the 102, you got the 110, and the 201. I mean, like you already said, you're a stack team and you have assets. Like you got, again, 102, 110, 201. Like just, CMC is just one of those guys that sometimes that you just have to let die on your team. Just take the points and just let him die there. Like you're not desperate to sell him right now. If your team is good enough to win without him, then like I'm okay with trying to cash out now and getting the best offer if that's the best you can get, the 105 and the 106. But if I like really need him to win, then I might just let him die on the team. If my team is that stacked, if I have like core wide receivers and core players in my flexes as well, like, and I'm good just letting them die on the squad. It doesn't look like you're deprived of any kind of assets right now. So, Mystic, what up, Mystic? 12 team Superflex start 11, 1.5 tight end premium. I gave AJ Brown for Pittman and 225 first. Yeah, awesome. I'd do that in a second. That's a smash accept right there. Cherry picked him and got for sure the 1-1. He traded away all his pieces and is rebuilding. Yeah, that's an awesome trade. Love AJ Brown, especially this year, but you're getting Pittman, who's a bona fide wide receiver too, and you're getting 225 first. Like, so yeah, I'll take that. And it's the 101, so you know how valuable that is. You can get yourself into the Chase, into the JJ, the Amon Ra range. Like, so yeah, I like that. It's a good trade. That's exactly what we're trying to do, and that's what I try and do every season. At some point in the season, the first couple weeks, I'm starting to, send some tear downs. What's his value in Dynasty if he ends up in Pittsburgh? Will it go up if Fields becomes the QB? No, I don't think it goes up. I don't necessarily know if it goes. It's gonna go down a little bit. It's not gonna go down much, but probably a little bit. I mean, there's no quarterback over there, you know. And if Fields is a starter, like there's not a ton to go around. If Russ is a starter, then we don't know how long Russ is gonna be the starter. So yeah, I guess yeah, he would slide down a few slots. He'll probably lose some value. I mean, he's already probably valued at like a late-ish first. He's, wide receiver anywhere from like 12 to 16-ish dynasty wise. I don't know if he'll ever get any higher. I mean, he's kind of capped, at least on the Niners, for what they do. I mean, he had a great season, but he was crazy efficient. Like, what's the chances that that happens again? He barely had over 100 targets, if I'm not mistaken. But again, he's in a range of where you can use that value to trade up or trade down if you need to. So no, I don't think his value goes up, but I don't know necessarily if it goes down a ton. I would say definitely a little bit. Should I give the for sure one-on-one next year for two mid first? Also in 2025, my QBs are set. I mean, yeah, if you could do more with those, I mean, I'll probably just hold on to the one-on-one because you never know, right? Those two mid first that you think might turn to late first, and then you're like, oh fuck, what I do? So I'll probably just hold that. I'll just hold that just for the value because we know that one-on-one is going to go up and up and up, right? So no, just hold on to the one-one mystic. You'll be able to make that trade, if not something better, once we get to that time. Will said, my next best running back is Kenneth Walker, but I hear you. All right, that's not bad. I mean, what's the rest of your team look like? You said you had a super team, so I'm assuming that you've got, a lot more ammunition than just CMC. Let him die on my team, which I'm okay with. Just trying to stay one. Yeah, no, of course. But there's just certain situations where, and I forgot what was the starters in that. Two running backs, three wide receivers, tight ends, two, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so start 10 on offense, and then you got the IDP in there too. So yeah, I just hold them. It just makes the most sense, right? You have assets. You're not in a pinch. Just let them die on the squad. Johnny D, what up? What's the play with first overall? Riding with CMC or going with Tyreek Lamb or Chase? 10 team PPR. Can't believe I finished last, even though with most points scored last season. Yeah, I mean, look. Sometimes it happens that way. It's unfortunate. There's weeks where you score a ton of points and then it's a shootout and you lose that week. But then the rest of the teams in the league, like you would have beat every other team except for that one person that you played. And that's just fantasy. That's just what happens. I two of my leagues last year, I was, at the top in points scored, and I wound up not making the playoffs. So it happens. Um, but yeah, I mean, look, depends on your risk factor. It's hard to not go CMC because of how much of a cheat code he really is. Um, I haven't had the luxury of having the first pick in any of my redrafts yet, so luckily haven't had to make this decision. It's a pretty shitty decision. Um, I think I don't think Chase is the 1-1. I think you have to go at least Lamb or Tyreek over Chase. I mean, Cheetah was on his way to like a 2,000 yards. I mean, and I love Chase, and Chase could finish as a wide receiver 1, but I just think you should take, Tyreek or CMC or even Lamb. I mean, does Lamb scare you off a little bit with everything that's going on? Maybe. I don't think there's a right answer for the first overall because you can make a case for a few of these things, for all of these guys actually, right? You can make the case that, hey, I'm just not comfortable taking CMC, like he's got an injury already. Let me not take that chance. Because if you miss on that 1-1, like that hurts your team, right? Um, you can make the case for CD Lamb to take him the 1-1, right? Because of what he did last year. You can also make the play it safe. But I just don't see how they're not going to pay CD Lamb. I don't think it's going to come to that. And then Chase, like you can make the case Burrow is healthy now, and he's got a shot to go ham. But realistically, I think it's between CMC, Tyreek, and Lamb. Go with however you want. Take the wide receiver to play it safe if you don't want to take the risk on CMC, because you could come back in that second round on that next turn, that 2-3 turn, and bang out 2 running backs. Like if you get, I'm pause, but you know what I mean, right? On second at that 2-3 turn, you could get 2 running backs at that point, and then you'll have a top wide receiver to go along with 2 running backs, and you're not having to take the risk on CMC. So, there he is. What up, Hammer?
What up? What up, man?
So I think that's another way to look at it also. We're talking about the 1-1 in redraft right now. CMC, Tyreek, Lamb, and Chase. And, it is a little scary with CMC because he's injured, but we know he's a damn cheat code. So, if you don't want to go with him, you could go with Tyreek or even Lamb. And like I said, on that 2-3 turn, you can hit running back back to back there if you want, if you want to go wide receiver on that first pick. So what you think, Hammer?
That's such a tough one. And I was watching ESPN. I think I was watching NFL Live or maybe one of the fantasy shows, and there's always going to be some regression from the number 1 overall running back or the number 1, whoever puts up the most points per position, or number 1 overall. There's always going to be some regression. And the scariest thing for me about CMC is, and I looked this up, he has, between rushing and receiving, he has over 700 opportunities in the last 2 years. You can't tell me at some point that's not going to catch up to him. And he was a little banged up last year. And I'm actually very surprised they didn't use a little more Eli Mitchell in goal line. Like, they just gave it to him time and time and time again. Now, does the production outweigh the risk? That's something you have to ask yourself. I think it is. But at what point does that risk become reality for me? So I think the receiver is the safer option, but Jesus Christ, CMC is one of those guys that can single-handedly carry you to a championship with everything that he does, because he's basically a RB1 and a wide receiver 1 wrapped up into one player. So you don't really get that level of that combination from very many players, especially when you're talking redraft. So I think it's between CMC and Tyreek Hill. Because Tyreek Hill is just, he can go for, he was on pace for 2,000 yards, and I know you and I were talking about it when we were doing our redraft last night, and I was actually surprised, especially in a 2 quarterback league, that you took Tyreek with your first pick, and you kind of laid it out that the dude was on pace for 2,000 yards. So it's it's between CMC and Tyreek Hill at this point, and it's just how risk averse are you? If you're not as risk averse as some other people, you go Tyreek. If you want to go for the gusto, you go for CMC.
And like, that's the crazy thing. So yeah, I took Cheetah and Bogey. What up, Bogey? Special guest Bogey on the show tonight.
Whoa.
What up? How y'all doing?
In the house. What up, man?
What's good with you, my good
And
brother?
Everything's
So I
good.
took Cheetah because again, it's not only your format, right? But know your league mates, right? This is a home league that we've been drafting for a while now. And I kind of know how everybody likes to draft. And even though it's 2 QB, the QBs fall, especially ESPN, because they're just dumb. ESPN does not adjust the ADP for
Your
2
format
quarterback leagues or
for
super
the
flex
format,
leagues.
yeah.
It doesn't adjust to the format. Um, and so that has a little bit to do with it too. But I knew that if I knew I was okay with landing like a Burrow Stroud on my second pick, and so I decided to just go Cheetah because even though it is 2 QB, it is very shallow, right? It's 2 running back, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and 1 flex,
Yeah.
right? So it is relatively shallow. So being able to get Cheetah and then coming back around and still getting my homeboy, like that was big for me.
So I had the pick before. I was picking before you, and I could have took Mahomes. I could have, but Joe Burrow's been my boy. He's been the Dragon Slayer. Every time I have him, I feel confident when he's healthy.
Yeah,
and
Mighty
out
Joe.
there. That's it. So I call him Slim Shady now. So
I like it.
so
you know why he did that, right? The haircut. It's actually pretty awesome because he didn't go announce it to get the attention for it, but there's a fan that is battling cancer and asked him, "Can you shave your head in support of me and others that are battling cancer?" So he did it, and he didn't really announce it to no one. So I actually dig that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Pretty cool, right?
So
but the blonde, I think the bleaching and blonde was just his little twist on it. You know what I mean?
It was shocking because he looks like a different person for the most part because he normally had that dirty blonde kind of Macaulay Culkin
like a giant Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah. So, but it was very surprising in that redraft league because, like I said, pretty much everybody that's been in that league's been in there for 10 years roughly. We're going on 10 years. We're virtually the same 12 people.
That's awesome.
So everybody knows
everyone in there.
I mean, most of us have known each other for a long time.
No,
I have a couple
but
of.
I'm just saying, I in the competition wise, I hate them. Fuck them all.
You know what it is too, and there's actually good parity in that league. Like, nobody really dominates year after year, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Just because of the 2 quarterback, like you have to play 2 quarterbacks. So around week 6, it just gets absolutely no, it's straight 2 quarterbacks. Okay, so
that's cool.
It adds a level of parity because quarterbacks are getting hurt. Everybody, especially week 6. After week 6, when the bye weeks kick in, people are scrambling. Like last year, Joe Flacco was a hot commodity.
Hell yeah.
Some of these backup quarterbacks. So it does keep good parity in my league, which I really do like. And it creates interesting trade opportunities at the end of the season. Now, some people have more leverage than others, but it does keep it good. But just going back to the 2 quarterback situation, like, you called it even before the draft, and I was like, nah, some people are going to take quarterbacks. And then you pretty much had I got Joe Burrow, I think, at the 110 in a 2 quarterback league, 12 teams.
Pretty cool.
And then I was able to flip around and get Kyler Murray. But yeah, so I enjoy it. And it definitely puts a different spin on how you draft as opposed if you're single quarterback, et cetera. So there is a different element of drafting and draft strategy, to go with it.
I think
Why did you take Burrow? Why'd you take Burrow?
I like his weapons over Mahomes. I like Joe Burrow's weapons a little bit better with Chase and T. Higgins and Burton. And I mean, I know they have Zach Moss now, but
Chase Brown should be good in the
Chase game. Brown. Yeah. So I just like Joe Burrow's ceiling a little bit higher than Mahomes' ceiling for this particular season.
I don't think it's as hot takey as people think, but like Burrow could finish higher than Mahomes, and it's not far fetched. I mean, it is crazy because Mahomes, all he ever did was go up and up in fantasy until last year, kind of hit a wall. But like he also had a top tier defense. You know what I mean? To like actually compensate. So
they adjusted their approach.
Yeah, they could win lower scoring games and not win 30 to fucking 24 or whatever they're winning. Like
and also Also, too, they had a bunch of unproven guys, unproven pass catchers outside of Travis Kelce, right? The Juju Smith-Schusters weren't there.
Rashee Rice actually became a thing
Rashee
because
Rice
there was
emerged. Yeah. But that didn't happen right away, right? It took a little while for him to
but
emerge.
He definitely was catching tugs out of nowhere all day.
Oh, yeah,
day.
yeah. Nah, Rashee Rice definitely emerged. And then obviously they draft Xavier Worthy. So I'm wondering how quickly he can adjust. And Travis Kelce's another year older. I said this, and it was controversial a little bit. And even I think Steve agreed with me, where he didn't look the same. Was that a product of him getting older? Did he have some nagging injury? What was it that we saw?
I would say it was the injury that he played hurt majority of the year, because when he got that 2 weeks off before the playoffs started, they had the bye week and they were able to take week 18 off. So they had 2 weeks for him to get right. And I swear in the playoffs, it looked like the Chiefs that we are, that we know and should fear.
But
he did
same
look
thing.
Better moving. He looked a lot better moving. So he had something that was nagging, right?
Yeah.
The same thing could be said that we're talking about with CMC with Travis Kelce is, at what point are you going to start to see some level of decline? Was he 35, 36 years old now? So, and he's a tight end. He takes punishment over the middle.
He's a yak guy too. He's a yak guy too.
So he's gonna absorb some of that. And also too, let's not forget about this. A lot of the defenses have been just shutting Kelce down and saying, hey, beat us with Rashee Rice, beat us with whoever else they had on that roster from a pass catching standpoint. So I think defenses were starting to adjust a little bit even. And because his ceiling is so high, or his standard is so high, I should say, that if there's a little bit of drop off, we're going to notice it.
Yeah. And most people play in tight end leagues. So if we actually are getting Kelce at a value, all things considered, you know what I mean? And
Laporta's been going way too high.
Yeah.
Dynasty and redraft.
And Laporta, for what it's worth, a lot of mouths to feed over there. You know what I mean?
Kind of feels San Francisco 49ers-ish from a skill set standpoint, where there's enough guys to go around but I do think Sam Laporta, I would say he is being overvalued just because he is a tight end.
We're definitely chasing last year's production.
For sure.
And I do believe in an emergence of a Jameson Williams. So I think actually what benefits Laporta and someone like a St. Brown with Jared Goff is that he don't want to stretch the field as routinely as we would want him to. So he is going to favor the short game. So I do like Laporta, but we're definitely drafting him at his ceiling again. And I don't think he falls any further than tight end 5, right? Overall. So
he'll be up there no matter what.
Yeah,
it's just that he's not what Travis Kelce was, and then there's just a bunch of other guys after that. He's just in a range of 5, 6, 7 guys that all can finish, tight end 1. They're all good. He didn't blow everything out the water, I think, is the main thing. He wasn't even first in fantasy points per game as a tight end. So, there's just not saying he's not good, but
put him at that wow.
Can you tear down if you need to? Mystic said that 101 that he got, give it up for 3 random 25 firsts. He's already got 2 other firsts, so that would give him 5. And this is a start 11. Yeah, you might that might be something to do, because then you're gonna have 5 of the
5.
14?
5. 5 times. Can you dig it?
Yeah, but again, what can you do with them, right? Can you go and buy some? Can you go out and buy some studs? Can you go out and buy some of the hammers? I think that's the main. Any of those firsts he's offering, one of those firsts he's offering is my own. I'd say mid just to be safe, but I'm more on the contending side. Okay. Birdman, what up, Birdman? It's been a minute. Good, Birdman.
Birdman.
CMC does score like a QB. That's the thing. You just let him die on your team. He said, if you got a contending team, you just gotta deal with it. Just gotta deal with it.
You're on the clock right now, 101. What would you do?
What, Dynasty?
Okay, I guess we are in Dynasty. Yeah, say you're in Dynasty startup, 101.
I'm still taking either Joshua or Patty. I mean, you know, depends on the day of the week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really,
it's
that's
hard to
all
not take Josh
simple.
Allen because he actually is he's more similar to Cam Newton as far as the rushing, but like he has the passing as the floor as well. Like, I mean, like what would we consider the floor? His rushing or passing? Like, you have to combine them. You know what I mean? The guy actually puts up mad numbers. Hi, babe.
Johnny D said I have straight dummies in my league. I'm worried that on my 2-3 turn, the top QBs will be gone. Hurts, Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, super early. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I'm worried on my 2-3 turn. Listen, if they're gonna take them early, let them take them early. I mean, you know,
you got to adjust,
what
make the adjustment. Yeah. That's the thing, and especially with some of the drafts we've been getting into, like I used to just hone in on one or two players and hope that they're there, but you always want to have a pivot or two or three, depending on, you know, how far away your slot is. So I'm always looking to pivot. I'm always feeling good about at least two or three different guys, and especially in these dynasty leagues, you can trade up if you feel like that's your guy and you want to go get your guy. So don't be afraid to trade up as well. You know, you don't want to mortgage your entire, you know, rest of your startup draft, but don't just hone in on one guy. Like, if those guys get taken, there's going to be other guys available, particularly those top end wide receivers that are going to drop to you. And there's enough quarterback depth, in my opinion, that you can still get really good production at that turn that you're talking about. So let that value go to your wide receivers. And then if you end up with a Dak Prescott, if you end up with a Jordan Love, if you end up with a Kyler Murray, Jared Goff,
you know who my favorite?
Be okay with that.
My favorite is to wait and take Jaden Daniels like way late.
Okay.
And then combine that with another like late quarterback just to be safe. Like, you know, because you could just take the chance on the upside and you're waiting way late. So, you know, and he looked good. Like he looked. I mean, he wasn't in for long, but they said on that deep ball that he threw, like he called an audible. Like he was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna just." He's like, I'm going to ask for forgiveness. You know, if it, he's like, I'm not asking for permission. I'm gonna ask for forgiveness. And he threw that little bomb to Diami Brown, I think it was, and then he wound up running in for the touchdown, which was good to see. That, you know, when they are down at the goal line,
it's going to give you some rushing upside.
That's the plan that they have, is to kind of to let him run. So, you know, I think even in my mind, like Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler kind of went down in value a little bit too. They had Eckler at the goal line too. So it's I don't know. It's going to be weird, that backfield, like who's going to get the goal line carries. And, you know, you would think that JD is going to take a lot of that away. So I love waiting and getting JD late.
I'm telling you, there's value there. There's definitely value on those turns, especially because in our sub league 2, I was at the 110, and I picked Amon-Ra at the 110. I didn't rush it on the quarterback, and then I swung around at the 2-2 and grabbed up Jordan Love, and then we had a third round reversal, and I grabbed Jared Goff, and I feel pretty solid about that. So there are good values if you don't get the Mahomes, the Burrows, the Allens, the Lamars. Like, there's good value still to be had, and you're going to end up with a top flight wide receiver. You're going to end up with Chase. You're going to end up with JJ. You're going to end up with St. Brown. So don't fret over you didn't get the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks.
You're going to get the value at the other position. So just take advantage of that, right?
Do you guys have a cutoff at QB? Like, you know, as far as Superflex goes, like mine's pretty much Baker. Like, I think Baker's probably the last QB too. Like, I really feel good about.
My cutoff for Superflex, redraft or dynasty, really is like I think Deshaun Watson's like at a great value right now, where you can really kind of wait a lot, like late. And once I get down to that range, like it's scary. Some of those other quarterbacks that are there, like you're taking some risks.
You're taking a risk.
There's some older guys down there. There's some rookies down there. Like it's just a little risky for me. So I'm trying to snag up quarterbacks before I kind of get to that point. We're in one draft now where I wound up getting, I think, Hurts and Kyler. Kyler fell all the way to like the 2.7, maybe 2.8, something like that. And I wound up getting Hurts and Kyler, and my plan was to take Michael Penix on this next comeback around,
and he got snagged
somebody
up.
Scooped him, and it was early. It's like the 8th round, so it's still a little bit early, for Penix. But somebody wound up scooping him because I was just gonna stash him on the taxi until something happens there, and somebody wound up taking him. So. In Dynasty, I love taking Penix like late. Like he's a great value there as like a 3rd QB that you can just kind of hold on to, or even 4th QB, depending how you want to draft. So
it's so interesting you say that, because once you get past the top, I want to say 4 or 5-ish rounds, it gets so unpredictable on what guys are going to do. Like Aaron Rodgers went in our draft in what did he go? He went in the 7th round. In a dynasty draft. And that was surprising because I had Aaron all the way down there. And I was like, listen, if I could grab him up in maybe like the 9th or 10th as my 3rd quarterback for this year, maybe even next year at best, I would feel pretty comfortable with that. So I was really trying to get value in other positions. Like I said, I have Jordan Love, I have Jared Goff. So I feel really safe with those two guys. Particularly on the injury front, I'm not going to get a ton of the rushing upside, but I'm going to get solid, safe quarterback play pretty much the entire time. So it's really interesting how you try to wait. I was even thinking about grabbing Will Levis there in the 9th round, and somebody snagged him. Well, I could have grabbed him, but I ended up doing something. I was like, maybe Will Levis will be there in the 10th. I made a trade, so I got a couple extra picks. So it's just so unpredictable that, if you're in that range, go grab your guy or get some value and figure it out later.
The quarterbacks dried up at the 3-4, right? That's Tua win at the 3-4, and then after that it was like Deshaun Watson win at the 4-9, and then around later you had Drake May, around later McCarthy, and then around later Kirk and Aaron Rodgers and Baker.
Where the big
right? So the quarterbacks were gone in the early 3rd, like.
What about Big Bogey Nix? Where'd Bo Nix go?
Nix went.
He just went 8-5.
Yeah,
I like Bo Nix a lot.
8-5.
I like him a lot, and it's not really necessarily based on his skill. It's just that I feel like he's a starter, so he's kind of a guy like, if I can't get my hands on a Baker, like I wouldn't mind falling to a Bo Nix, like if I'm waiting on QB. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure Bo Nix goes higher than a Baker in Dynasty, and also in redraft, he definitely will go after Baker. You know what I mean?
It's risky for me for a QB too, like because if it doesn't hit, like you're fucked. Like
for QB2,
gotta be your QB3.
Dangerously.
So
I feel like I feel like really quick, if you're going after Bo Nix, you better get Kirk Cousins and then handcuff him with Bo Nix. Like that's the route I feel like is the route you kind of have to go. So
yeah,
no,
so
I mean Michael Penix. I'm sorry, Penix. My bad.
Yeah,
Bo Nix is on Denver. My bad.
Yeah.
Save his health for the later part of the season. Yeah, I could see that too. I mean, they got a ton of weapons now, so they don't have to like put it all on Kelsey early. Once the playoff hits, it's it's the Kelsey show. But
yeah, it is kind of annoying. They were saying like they want to get even the rookie Wiley involved, and I tend to not believe all that shit. But then, I mean, they do want to preserve their main guy. Like it's definitely different from Mahomes without Kelsey available or healthy. You know what I mean? So.
They struggled a lot in man coverage, especially. They just guys could not get open. Ghost Monkey, what up, Ghost Monkey?
What up, Ghost?
Tribe said Puka #1. What's good, Tribe? Jay in the house. What up, Jay?
Jay, what's happening?
Goku said, "What do we do with Mike Evans in Dynasty this year? Either contending or rebuilding."
Well, I actually took Mike Evans.
I saw that. I was debating on whether to take him or not, and then I went with the young running back.
I saw that.
Just because the way kind of my team was shaking out. So I didn't want to take the older guy, but
yeah. So my thoughts on the Mike Evans thing, because I did take him. Where did I take him? At the fuck is it? Where did I take him?
I like Chris Godwin a lot this year.
I took him at the 7-4.
Yeah.
So I was able to get Mike Evans at the 7-4, and the main reason why I did that was because I thought it was a good value, especially in the touchdown department. If we know anything about Mike Evans, he catches touchdowns, so I felt pretty good about that. And also too, because I obviously have St. Brown, and I picked up Michael Pittman as well in the back end of the 4th round. So if Mike Evans is slotting in as my 2-3, I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, and sure. I mean if anything, there's anything to worry about with Baker in his career, I would say like they were scared to let him uncork it, but this regime last year, they weren't afraid to let him uncork it. He was going down the field routinely. Canales did leave the OC and the QB coach. They left to Carolina, but they brought in a former OC from Sean McVay, who Baker actually played under. You know what I mean?
I did see that.
Back in 2022. So, you know, you got to love the aerial attack, period, because that coaching lineage, you know what I mean, coming from Sean McVay, like they like to air it out. So I do like Mike Evans a good deal, even in the dynasty. I mean, if you're trying to win, that's a piece you want. I mean, even if I'm in the middle of the year and I need to make a push, if Mike Evans is sitting on a losing team, I'm making a play for him. You know what I mean?
And that's exactly what we talked about last year around the playoff push time. Was Mike Evans was one of those buy kind of guys if you needed that push, or a sell high if you're a team that's 4-8 and you're not going anywhere.
You're not gonna make it,
yeah, you can, if you could snag a 2nd round pick for a Mike Evans and you're 4-8, go get that 2nd round pick if your team's not going anywhere. Because, obviously at 30 years old, his value is probably not going to increase very much more than that. But the production's still going to be there in my estimation. He's probably going to give you 1,100 yards. He's probably going to give you 8-9 touchdowns. That's good if he's slotting in as your wide receiver 3.
How much of a chance is there that Baker pulls a Geno?
In what respect, though? From Geno from last year?
Yeah, well, okay, that's what I'm saying. Because he had the great season, and now
but I don't think that necessarily correlates to Mike Evans' production falling off, in the sense that Baker's the entrenched quarterback. Like, Baker's not gonna get benched if he struggles a little bit. I don't think, just based on his track record last year.
And Geno got the league leader in pass attempts behind him. I mean, he got Sam the Wolf Howell there. You know what I mean? Like,
so there's a little bit of that to it.
Yeah, I mean, and that still trips me out that he led the league in pass attempts last year. You know what I mean? Sam the Wolf, he's throwing that thing. Going back to Baker, Brad, like, I get what you're saying, the comparison with Geno, but I mean, when Geno fell back to earth last year, that's the Geno we all know and don't like. You know what I mean? The Geno of 22, that was an outlier year now in hindsight. I could confidently say that. With Baker, I think last year, his quote-unquote, like, breakout, that's more relatable to his rookie outing when he was under Hugh Jackson, where they actually wanted to throw a lot. Then they went to Kevin Stefanski, and you know this as a Vikings fan, Stevie, that it's a run-first approach. And that kind of hurt Baker. He got to the Bucs last year, they let him sling that thing. So I'm not afraid of Baker for our Mike Evans and Chris Godwin shares. And I especially like Chris Godwin because if we all play in PPR, and Chris Godwin is going to be the Cooper Kupp of that offense. I mean,
they did say he's moving back to the slot with this new.
Yeah, they're going to run the Rams, Sean McVay style offense. And, this is the coordinator that was underneath Sean McVay when they produced the Triple Crown winner with Cooper Kupp. I'm not saying that Chris Godwin's going to put that kind of production up, but you do like that he's going to slot in and be that role. You know what I mean? And we're getting him later than a Mike Evans normally.
And just to your point, really quick, Bogey, like what Baker was doing in his first 3 years in Cleveland wasn't that far off from what he did last year. He just had way more attempts, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he finished with his best yardage total, but not by much. He finished with his best touchdown total, but not by much. 10 interceptions. So if he throws 28 touchdowns, 30 touchdowns, 10, 11 interceptions, and he's at 4,000 yards. But where he did pick up was the attempts, 566 attempts. So you like that if you have Chris Godwin, if you have Mike Evans within that, to be able to get Mike Evans is going to get his 125, 130 targets. Chris Godwin probably in a similar range, as long as Godwin and Evans stay healthy. I think there's enough of a sample size of Baker playing at that sort of level where it's not just 9 years of garbage and then 1 year he plays well and then back. You know what I'm saying? So I think there is enough sample size for us to say that Baker could play at that 28, 4,000 yards, 28 touchdown, 10 interception level.
I always liked Baker a little bit. Maybe
I couldn't stand Baker.
Much. Maybe a little bit too much sometimes.
Couldn't stand Baker.
But yeah, I mean,
he got weapons.
Right. He's I think with Godwin as well, like we talked about Godwin back in like March, I think, like we had posted, because after the season they said Godwin was going to be back more in the slot. That didn't just come out, like that's been known for months, and he's been on the buy list, pretty much all off season as a cheap veteran guy that you can get, right? So. I mean, I love Godwin there, and then Baker, he just has to be decent, right? The defense got to play decent. Like he's not, he just, I don't know necessarily if he'll go out and win you games, but he just needs to not lose you games, right? He's got weapons around him. Use those guys, use the system, and just continue to do kind of, what he did last year. Like it didn't look like he felt like all the pressure, like he was just letting guys make plays, like, when they could. So, and dump it off to Rachaad White. Like he knows he's got the guy in the backfield. Yeah. That can play as well.
He has a 25% target market share to the running back position in his career. So when we saw that last year with Rachaad White, that shouldn't surprise anyone. He's not a mobile guy. He's going to dump it off as a safety valve. So I don't think that goes away. We actually were talking about the Buccaneers this morning. We broke down the NFC South. And, Rachaad White actually, he wasn't far off from total touches to a CMC even. So, I mean, and I'm not knocking Baker when I say this, but he's definitely a play action QB. I mean, you could probably say that, but you could say that about Jimmy G, right? But I mean, the run game is going to help him out, and it definitely did. And now they're bringing in the Ram style offense where it is going to be a lot of play action. It's going to be a lot more similar to what he's been used to in his career, but he never had weaponry like this. Like even when he had OBJ and Jarvis Landry, it wasn't shit because they're enforcing the run so much. Like the fact that they use the Rachaad White in the passing game as much as they do, Baker. There's a lot of extensions to Baker through the passing game. So I like the value we're getting on him. I don't think anyone gets excited over Baker ever. You know what I mean?
He's QB 10 last year.
Yeah, but no one's gonna get excited about him. You know what I mean?
Going back to the Mike Evans, right? If you're rebuilding, obviously you don't want Mike Evans on your team, right? That doesn't make sense to have him on your team, right? So you got to get rid of him. Now, do you do that more in season, or can you do that now? Like, can you do that when he's scoring points? Like, people will start paying once he's scoring points. Like right now, some people might not want him, but yeah, if you're rebuilding, you definitely want to get rid of him. You're probably not getting a first. Unless he's killing it in season. And, people do stupid things when they're trying to win. So, maybe you could, or you add a little something to it to get a first. But you're probably looking at like a second. You're probably looking at a second and a piece. And if you're contending, then you're probably just holding Mike Evans, right? I mean, unless you just want to pick up an extra asset, like maybe you can do like a slight tear down to like let me look at this draft real quick, to like a Terry McLaurin in a second or something like that, right? Can you pick up the extra asset, but you're still going to get, decent production from a Terry McLaurin or an Amari Cooper, right?
Who would you target? Like if you're in a startup right now, or on the flip side, if you're buying a piece to help you push, would you rather buy a Mike Evans or a Cooper Kupp?
Well, I'm probably doing that in season, right? I'm not doing that now.
In season and you're making a push, like, because I think Cooper Kupp still, even at his age, still has a higher upside. than a Mike Evans.
For sure.
But I think in a lot of ways he might be as affordable because people are scared of Cubs injuries and the age.
I think on a per game basis, Cooper Kupp has a higher ceiling.
For sure.
Like if you're talking week to week, Cooper Kupp still has those 28, 29, 30-point games, depending on your format, PPR, 100-yard bonus, etc. Where I think because Mike Evans is the clear number one, I think Mike Evans' production is maybe a little more consistent, but I think Cooper Kupp still has those week to week where he has the higher ceiling on a week to week. I think Mike Evans has the higher ceiling if you're talking about overall for the entire season. So that's a tough one, to be honest with you. I'm a Cooper Kupp guy. I've been a Cooper Kupp guy for about 3 years now because I had him on that Triple Crown season, and he led me to the championship. And it was awesome. So he's definitely my guy. I actually went out and bought his jersey when I went to a Rams game. And Cooper Kupp's awesome. But yeah, I think I like Mike Evans just a little bit. Now, how healthy is Matthew Stafford going to be?
That's a good point.
Those are all the things.
A lot of people will be afraid of Cooper Kupp because of the emergence of Puka,
the injury, and Puka. Yep.
Yeah, but the games they didn't play, they were sharing double-digit targets each. So I kind of like that. Like in a lot of ways, this goes for redraft. For redraft purposes, like there'd be some times where I'll have both of them. You know what I mean? I might even have a team, and hear me out here. I might have a team where I go Puka, and somewhere along the way, I acquire both Mike Evans, Kupp, and Chris Godwin. You know what I mean? Like that's not it doesn't seem crazy to me. Like I'll stack up all of them because they all come at a decent value outside of Puka, and these are guys that should garner, 20 to 25% of the target market share each. You know what I mean?
Listen, Cooper Kupp, his first 2 weeks back when he came back off that injury, 21. He had 15 catches on 21 targets for about 260 yards and a tutty in the first 2 games back. Then he kind of re-injured. And in his last month, he was getting those 8, 10, 12 target games where he had 4 touchdowns in his last 5 games to close out the season. So Cooper Kupp still got it in the bag, but how that risk of re-injury is real with that ankle. So I love him
in redraft. In redraft, I think, that's where you want to take the chances, right? You want to win the ship. Like, you got to take some chances in redraft. So, give me the Cooper Kupp where you can get him, really late. But in Dynasty,
because
even in Dynasty, like you could get him for relatively cheap.
7th round.
If he's your, on a contending team, he's your wide receiver 3 or 4. Like, I'll take that risk. Like, you're not paying a first because of his age, right? But you're paying a second.
Devontae Adams,
second plus
in startups.
Cooper Kupp in our startup went at the 7-12.
See what I'm saying?
In Dynasty, Dynasty,
fantastic value.
Yeah, Dynasty startup for sure. But yeah, because the Keon Colemans and Ladd McConkey's, all those guys are going before these guys.
Xavier Worthy.
And Devontae Adams is one of the guys where I'm like, man, if I was to compare the old guys, I think it's less risk avert with a Mike Evans or a Cooper Kupp because I don't really trust the QB
quarterback play. Yeah, it's terrible.
You know what I mean?
I will say this though. If I was a Devontae Adams owner, I would prefer Gardner Minshew being there the whole season because at least I know Gardner could sling it a little bit. If they do that Aiden McConnell thing, I'm out on Devontae Adams. I'm out.
I think the Aiden O'Connell thing is going to definitely favor of all you Brock Bowers truthers and all you Zamir White truthers. Because,
I could see that.
Yeah, because they're going to keep with the Ginsu, he's going to slice and dice and take it down the field. Look at the sample size we had in the preseason game so far. O'Connell was going everything short and everything was yak predicated versus Ginsu. He was going down the field and it's going to suck. Actually, this might be good for us because you might be able to acquire a Devontae Adams cheap if they start off with Aiden O'Connell and then eventually make the switch. You know what I mean? Because it will be better. Point. It will be better with the Ginsu's in there for someone like Adams, for sure.
That's a good point.
Crispy, what up, Crispy? Bakes a lot. What up, Bakes a lot?
Bakes.
Carl, should I draft Wicks or Brendan Rice? You're drafting Wicks. You're not drafting
It's Wicks. Rice. It's not even close.
And Christian Watson, he's got a boo-boo already.
I've just wound up I've just wound up staying away from all Green Bay Packers wide receivers. I
Give me
just want
Romeo Doubs all day. He's
I
a
just
great
don't
value.
want no part of it. I'm not taking him in redraft. I'm not taking him in Dynasty. I gave my only share of Jaden Reed.
Romeo.
I actually only
So
I gave my only share of Jaden Reed to Bogey last year. So
I think it was the reversal. I think I gave you Jaden.
Oh yeah, you did give me Jaden Reed. Right bad. You did. You gave me Jaden Reed, and then I traded him away. I think I traded him away for.
we're both mad.
So
I traded him away for something.
As the resident Packer fan here, I am not mad at that. I'm not mad at that. It's tough because we saw what happened last year. Like the target share, I heard a stat on ESPN radio today that I don't want to say it blew my mind, but it just outlines your point, right? So Romeo Doubs, 5.9 targets per game. Jaden Reed, 5.9 targets per game. Christian Watson, 5.9 targets, 5.7 targets per game. And then you sprinkle in Wicks, you sprinkle in the tight ends. Bo Melton was the only Packer last year with a 100-yard game. I don't know if many people know that.
Oh, that's big Bo Melton
during the regular season. I know. Dobbs had the 100-yard game in the playoffs when he bust the Cowboys' ass. But
let's go.
But yeah, no, but I totally agree. For my money, Jaden Reed is my favorite Packer receiver just because I think he can do a little bit of everything. The end around game, they can use him as a runner. He's very shifty. I like Jaden Reed as the best overall value.
More?
Well, not if they have Jacobs.
He was more Debo than I thought he was, but he only had about 11 carries last year.
Well, he's smaller than Debo. So
yeah, but I mean, as far as like his usage, like in my mind, looking back, I thought he was like more gadgety, but then like he only really had 11 carries. He was just real.
Also, remember that was a lot of Aaron Jones being out of the lineup, so that was kind of by default. So when Aaron Jones came back, they really didn't have to do too much of that in the last month of the season. So, but now they have a workhorse in Josh Jacobs, so I don't foresee as much of that, but I do like the jet sweeps. I do like the end around with Jaden Reed. He's pretty good in the red zone as well. And also, right, is Christian Watson going to be on the field? That's also something that, you can't count on. So for my money, it's Jaden Reed, but I'll hear the Dubes, I'll hear the Wicks, I'll hear the tight ends are solid. And how much of those targets are going to be Josh Jacobs rushing attempts now?
Well, I'm with you on Jaden Reed. I mean, we've always loved Jaden Reed from since he was a rookie, right? I like him as the best overall wide receiver on that team. It's just like that whole team and all it's better for football, not necessarily
not enough target
fantasy.
share to feel good
right
about.
For fantasy, it doesn't do good. It doesn't do us anything. Like we just hate it as fantasy owners,
I like Romeo Doubs a lot. I'm still gonna. I mean, even last year when I used to come on y'all's show, I was on the same hype because it's not just the value that he goes real late, but like, he's the X receiver. He's the guy. He's their. I hate to say this, but he's their Devontae Adams. With no Devontae Adams, that's the guy who fills that role. You know what I mean? You got Christian Watson, who's the freaking mega athlete that can't stay healthy, but he's 6'5", like kind of a one-trick pony. The guy who runs all the routes.
He's the best route runner. He's the best route runner.
There it is.
On that team. And it's not even close.
Yeah.
But with that target share, like each guy on a game-to-game basis with the way the ball is spread around, you can't lock in. Like all those guys are flex plays at best. You know what I mean? So it's hard to really key in on one of those guys. And if you have them, you have to keep them in that lineup because that Packers offense is really good, but so diverse. Did you guys hear Matt LaFleur when the reporter asked him, like, oh, you guys don't have a number one receiver? He goes, the next time I hear that, I'm going to vomit.
Yeah.
You ever notice his eyebrows are always real clean?
Yeah, Matt LaFleur's a clean-cut dude.
He is, right? He's like
he's a cleaned-up dude.
Huh? He's like
he's my kind of guy.
Brian said, what up, guys? What's the move on Devontae Adams? Wait until the late rounds on him. Redraft? I don't know. I'm kind of just staying away.
3-4 turnaround is usually where I see him go in a single QB redraft. I would hope he falls a little bit. I mean, he's still a guy who's going to garner 30% target market share. I'm kind of a type where I'll remove the names and how I feel about them, and I'll just look at their target market share. If I could build a team chuck full of guys that are just going to be volume hogs, Adams is in that category. You know what I mean? But yeah, you kind of close your eyes and pick them. You know what I mean?
I mean, with Subpar and Steve and I did we did kind of like a buy low or buy mid, I should say, because a guy like Devontae Adams isn't always necessarily a buy low. But even in a down season, he still had 103 receptions for 1,140 yards and 8 touchdowns. And that was terrible quarterback play. So if you're telling me Devontae Adams, you're going to get, low end wide receiver 1 production still, all right, like there's value to be had there, but this Aiden O'Connell thing just makes me nervous, man. It really does.
We know that none of those guys are the QBs, so they need to get somebody. Will said, so Stevie, if you're staying away from Green Bay wide receivers, call my base upon it's hard to predict. Are you staying away from the Texans receivers? Well, no, the Green Bay receivers are not as polished or as proven as those Texans receivers, right? And Hammer just said they didn't have a 100-yard receiver other than Bo Melton. So with the Texans, like you've got Dell, you've got Nico, who was a wide receiver 1 last year, you've got Diggs, who we know has been the wide receiver 1 for a while. So it is crowded, but we know
I would just rather have Stroud, right? Like if you can't choose, but you can get your hands on Stroud, you got them all. You know what I mean?
Right, but it's a little bit different because we know who we can expect to score the points or who's going to get. Like there's 3 guys that it can kind of go to. Green Bay, it's like 5 different guys, and we've seen that Nico is kind of like the wide receiver 1, right? And then you've got Diggs, and then you've got Dell. So, like, we know that, I guess you could say Jordan Love too, right? I mean, he can throw the football. CJ Stroud can throw the damn football. But I feel like it's just more of
there's more of a pecking order. There's a pecking order.
Yeah. Like we know at least we don't know who's going to be a wide receiver 3 flex for Green Bay. Like we can at least predict like wide receiver 2s for some of these guys on the Texans, I feel like.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I will say, though, with the addition of Stephon Diggs, I think it's made the Nico Collins and the Tank Dells more valuable because people are kind of like, well, if Nico Collins isn't going to be that same Nico Collins from last year, that was the clear wide receiver 1, Diggs is going to cut into that. And also, don't forget, they picked up Joe Mixon. And Joe Mixon is a 20 carry a game kind of guy. So do some of those carries take away less targets for Nico and a Tank Dell? I picked up Tank Dell in a redraft because I just think he's a home run hitter. If he slots in as my flex, I'm comfortable with that. Nico Collins, I think, is the wide receiver 1. And also, 2, the difference between the Texans and the Packers is Stephon Diggs came into a situation that was already good. With the Packers, these guys have all been together and created a good situation. So there was already kind of a pecking order on the Texans, whereas Green Bay is kind of just evolving because they've all been together this first and second year.
Yeah, I think a lot of people should remember that when the Green Bay is firing all cylinders, when they had Aaron Rodgers, they're a very efficient, very slow and methodical offense, right? With Josh Jacobs there now, that's going to bring that style back. So I worry about the passing volume. But I think Jordan Love is a guy who we could bank on some efficiency here. I think he's going to be better in year 2 as a starter. I just don't think there's a volume hog at all in that offense as far as receiver goes. Yeah.
It's an equal opportunity employment. If you get open, you're going to get the ball. If the play is designed, you're going to get the ball. And we even saw, particularly in that game against Dallas, like the tight ends are very, very much involved as well. So that just adds another layer of it.
I think it was a matchup thing. I think it was a matchup thing because everyone was tearing up Cowboys with the tight ends last year. So there was that, and that goes to good coaching. Like that's why it's kind of hard to pinpoint on a week-to-week basis because they are definitely going into the week with their game plan of who they're going to attack on that defense. You know what I mean? They definitely attack weaknesses. Matt LaFleur is good like that. And then, not to mention, if their defense is actually in shape this year, because they were in a lot of shootouts last year, if they can own time of possession with the run game and play decent defense, that's definitely going to take all those numbers down that we need in fantasy. You know what I mean?
And like, the volume, like you said.
Yeah. And if you compare it to a CJ Stroud and them, they're going to run a shitload of plays. And even though their defense is good, their plan of attack is to run up the scoreboard and then tee off on defense. You know what I mean? That's kind of the trend with a lot of the Shanahan family tree teams, right? And Matt LaFleur is one of them, but he is very methodical with the run game. And I don't think that changes if Josh Jacobs isn't healthy. I mean, as long as he's healthy. You know what I mean? Like, they brought him in for a reason.
And even if you look at it, the last 4 games of the season and even the playoff game, Aaron Jones got 20+ carries in like 5 straight games. So that just alludes to what you're saying, where they want to run the ball 20, 22 times a game with their primary back and then run the play action off that. That's their bread and butter, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And it is good to see when they get down there in that red zone, that back shoulder fade is still there. Like, that we all know and love what's out of Green Bay. You know what I mean?
And to be fair, Nico averaged like 17.4 points per game, and Dell was at 15. There was no Packers at that. What did Jaden Reed? Let me see what Jaden Reed averaged.
Finished at wide receiver 25, I believe, in half PPR, if I'm not mistaken.
He was 13.6 points per game. But a lot of that was with Watson hurt too, and then you saw Wicks start to emerge as well.
Big Wicks.
All right, Will, how would you guys take Brock? How high would you guys take Brock Bowers in your rookie draft if he falls down to the 110 or 201? Would you grab him? Yeah, if he falls that far.
Yeah, even the 110.
Absolutely.
I mean, I still think, like, if I'm in a startup, I still think I can get a Laporta later than that. I mean, right? I mean, is Laporta going in the top 10 like that? I'd rather have a Laporta than a Bowers.
Laporta in our startup went at the 3.6.
See what I'm saying?
In a startup.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little early. It's a little early for me. It's not that bad.
I'm fucking up. He's talking rookie draft. He's not talking.
He is talking rookie.
Yeah.
110 is good.
Yeah, not bad. That's really good, actually. I mean, like, I don't, early on in the offseason in rookie drafts, because we're degenerates, we don't really wait. It was like pretty much right after the draft. And Keon Coleman was going, like around that range. And in a lot of ways, I'd rather have the receiver. It is awesome to have a solid tight end that you don't have to worry about in Dynasty, where you have a tight end spot you have to start. You know what I mean? But I don't think Brock is there yet. You know what I mean?
That's the thing. We're expecting him to be Sam Laporta.
And Michael Mayer is actually a thing. You know what I mean? Like, he's a better blocker as far as what they're saying. Like, they're saying that he's better in the blocking game.
I don't know if you saw, but they were doing an interview with Antonio Pierce, and basically he said, like, yo, if Brock Bowers is going to earn his playing time, he's going to have to be a better blocker.
Yeah.
He said that straight up.
Yeah. And Michael Mayer's, when you look at his routes run per dropback, it wasn't crazy because he's out there blocking. But if you look at his field snaps, he was out there a good deal as a rookie last year. That probably doesn't go away. They're going to run a bunch of big packages, 12 personnel, stuff like that, because they're going to try to run the ball with White. I mean, that's just what they're going to do.
For sure.
Yeah, I kind of fading the Raiders like that.
McBride and Kittle ahead of Bowers.
Oh, McBride for sure.
Not Kittle.
Yeah, Kittle's going to be the value, like, because he will go after all those guys. You know what I mean?
The problem,
we live in a world with no IU. There's going to be that playbook opens up more for Kittle. Best believe it. You know what I mean?
The problem I've had with Kittle, because I owned him. We had a home dynasty league for, like, I think we were going into our 4th year, but it got nuked. But I traded for Kittle, and Kittle he could be frustrating because he'll go out there and give you 6 for 75 in a 2 touchdown game, and then you won't hear from him for like a month.
Yeah, he's definitely a matchup guy.
So that's the frustrating part about Kittle. Obviously, Trey McBride is way ahead.
He's more receiver than tight end.
Correct.
Yeah. And it's pretty concentrated down to him and Marvin Harrison, I would imagine. And I would assume for your tight end to garner, 20+% of the target market share, you gotta love that. And he
sign up for that every day.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because then we don't. You say the tight ends are so ugly. So yeah, I understand for the startup aspect the importance of a tight end if you have a tight end spot, right? I mean, I'm just saying that because it's been years now that a lot of the leagues that I participate in, we made a tight end premium and removed the tight end spot altogether, making a choice for the person. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, the hustle leagues, you don't got to start a tight end. I mean, the crazy thing with tight end is like they're going so far apart in dynasty drafts, like even Laporta, Kincaid, Andrews, like Pitts, McBride. I mean, I'm just not taking Laporta so early. I'm just not. I love to wait, and you can get a Kyle Pitts or an Andrews,
Evan
right?
Ingram.
Or you could wait a little even longer and get like a
Ferguson.
Ferguson. Like
Ferguson
I
is a good
love like
value.
I
trying
love
to wait
Ferguson.
and getting a Ferguson,
I
right?
mean,
Or if you're rebuilding, almost depending how you're drafting like your team. Like I love waiting on a TJ Hawkinson too. Like you
Because of
can
the
get a
injury. Yeah.
solid tight end in TJ Hawkinson, going late just because he's injured right now. Or can you take advantage of the, Laporta, Kincaid, McBride kind of guys? Can you tier down to Hawkinson and get like a first on top? Like people will do it. I've seen it.
Yeah, and going back to the Ferguson thing, because I'm just forever a value shopper. I don't really like spending up high capital on a tight end. I usually try to trade for my tight ends after the fact. But yeah, like Ferguson is someone I tend to wait on a lot. I mean, guys like Evan Ingram and Joku, they all usually go before a Ferguson. And like when you look at Dak's career, I think he's going into year 8. And so I would say 7 out of the 8 years, 6 out of he's going into year 9. So 7 out of the 8 years so far, the tight end position is that the second most targeted from Dak. And this doesn't change. Like I said, it's 7 out of the 8 seasons he's played because his rookie year wasn't really like that. But since then, he goes to the tight end after his number one target. So Ferguson, and you look at last year, Ferguson's second on the team in targets. I mean, this is just and he's one of the only tight ends last year to get over 100 targets. So that's fucking awesome.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed at all.
They didn't add nobody. Shit, you might even get an uptick if we get a little bit of holdout.
Stevie holdout.
Yeah.
I think the main thing was the touchdowns, right? I don't think he had a lot of touchdowns. Like, does that change? He had 5 touchdowns.
I mean, there's as much as I love my man Rico Suave Dowdle, what running game do they got? You know what I mean?
I can't see him scoring less than that, kind of. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that could be a floor.
He did have 5. He had 5 touchdowns last season. So that's once you get past that 5 touchdown range for the tight end, you're talking about right. You're talking about top 8 tight end. He was already number 8 in half PPR, number 9 in full PPR with those 102 targets. And I do love his reception rate. So he's basically at 70% of his targets he's catching. So he had 71 catches on 102 targets.
It was help last year. He had I can't remember the exact injury. He's a UCL.
He played through it. He played all 17.
Yeah, and he would rock the freaking brace. And you know what I mean? I think that's the only thing that hindered him. But yeah, he's gonna be second in targets on that team as long as he's healthy.
Nah, he's a damn good value at the tight end spot.
Yeah. And then Evan Ingram tends to fall too because people just hate him. But I mean, shit, a Bow Wow, a couple years ago, and then last year over 100 grabs. So you add Brian Thomas. I think that actually opens it up because it doesn't take away from his little ADOT. You know what I mean? I mean, Brian Thompson is going to be the field stretcher. So I don't think much changes. And I guess you could argue that with Christian Kirk gone, that's what kind of boosted up in Evan Ingram. But tight ends are so ugly, you'd be hella happy to get an Ingram late. You know what I mean? You got to be happy to get an Ingram late.
Will said, could he turn into the next Jason Witten? I don't think so. I mean, the thing now is like, are they going to have enough money to pay even the tight end at some point, right? With all the guys they got to pay, right? Schultz wasn't that athletic, but he was able to make shit happen, or make it work
Second in
just
the
because the
team in
options that they're
targets.
in, right? Bogey had mentioned it, right? He's continuously hitting the tight end, so you can really kind of almost plug in any tight end in there, and they'll pretty much produce almost. So, like, is Ferguson going to be worth it for them to pay him?
Yeah,
Or are they even going to be able to?
To worry about Ferguson, you're correct. It's like if there is any worry about Ferguson in Dynasty, it's his job security, because they obviously don't want, they franchise tag Schultz that 1 year, then they moved on from him and then went on to Ferguson. They drafted Shoemaker, so they could perhaps switch over to him if Ferguson doesn't have some. I mean, Ferguson's probably not in line to get paid, even if he blows up, because they got to pay Lamb and Daiquiri, you know what I mean?
And
Micah, who I think they're going to franchise tag.
Listen, he's good at least for the next 2 seasons, right?
There you go. Yeah, contract-wise, yeah.
But after that, it's like, what's going to happen? The thing with Schultz is they actually offered Schultz a contract, and I think he turned it down, and then wound up going to the Texans, and it's crazy crowded over there. But
he went further in the playoffs over there when he chose that team.
Yeah, Schoonmaker getting more work, maybe. Maybe. I mean, I don't think it's something. I don't think it's anything to bet on, like, at all.
The system that they run. Mike McCarthy is not technically a guy who targets the tight end like that, but when you get someone like Dak, who this is part of his repertoire, they work that into the game plan. You know what I mean? They work the tight ends in. I mean, Brandon Cooks, he was always a lock for a thou, right? Didn't get it last year because the second most look that Dak's going to give is to the tight end position. So it's pretty cool that I can stand firm on that pause, because, I mean, 7 out of the 8 seasons we've seen Dak, this is what he does. You know what I mean?
To be fair, Cooks turned it on more in the second half of the season. I guess he did play well in
the second half. Yeah.
They kind of finally unlocked what they really want to do with.
And also too,
and it's funny, if you click on Brandon Cooks and Sleeper, it says latest news: Brandon Cooks has looked dynamic this offseason.
Stop it! They say all that crap.
He hasn't got a concussion in a while. We like that. Remember before, everyone loved Brandon Cooks, but then they hated him because, man, he just gets hurt and he's out for weeks. You know what I mean?
He was always a fantasy guy that was going to give you solid production, but nobody wanted to pay for him. And then you didn't want to give him up because nobody wanted to pay enough. Like, he was just one of those guys that'll quietly give you, 1,000 yards. I mean, he was a top 15 wide receiver, 1, 2, 3, 4, his first 4 out of his first 5 years.
Yeah,
and then he was kind of dealing with injuries and stuff. But
those 5 years, he was on 3 different teams.
Very quietly on Houston in 2 top 20 seasons.
Mm-hmm. Damn, is that his?
Now, I think some of the
that was his 14 on Houston, because he's on his 15 now. Yeah. Saints, Pats, Rams,
Houston, Texans, Dallas. But quietly, he had 8 touchdowns last season. So, that you can't undersell that. And they don't have, Jalen Tolbert. Is anybody excited about Jalen Tolbert? No, not really. No. Right? What is the running game going to do for you? What is, Dowdle and Zeke going to do for you? So if he gives you, if you just get a slight uptick in the yardage, right? If he's at 800 yards instead of 650 and 8 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns, that's not,
When you got the defense worried about CeeDee Lamb and then Ferguson down there, it kind of opens up a little bit for a guy like Cooks who knows how to get open. So, I mean, but that's what we're banking on, really. It's the touchdowns. I mean, he had one huge game against the Giants for $173. Jesus.
I mean, he blew up in the playoffs against in a losing effort against the Packers.
Yeah,
no, he didn't go too crazy. He only had 6 for 47.
Didn't he have 3 touchdowns and 100 or 90 yards and 10 catches?
No, that was Ferguson. Ferguson had 3 tutties.
I'm sorry, I thought we were talking about Ferguson.
Yeah, Ferguson had the 3 tutties, but I still think that Brandon Cooks could be good in spots. He pissed me off early in the year. I was almost going to release his ass, and then he went nuclear against the Giants. And then basically the second half of the season, he had, after the bye week, he had 7 out of his 8 touchdowns after his week 7 bye.
Yeah, you're talking about a guy that can possibly walk into 10 tutties. Like, I say the same thing about like Keon Coleman. Like I don't really believe he might be, able to play the X as good as kind of they want him to. But when you're playing with a guy like Josh Allen, like you could walk into 10 touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes, same thing. Any of those guys, like you could just walk into 10 plus tutties.
Yeah, I'm not gonna argue that.
Derek said Jalen Tolbert's trash. There was a lot of buzz coming out of camp about him this particular year, especially.
Yeah, I mean, it is funny because that's how polarizing the Cowboys are. America's team, that like they're
any little thing can be blown up.
News. Who's the number 3? You know what I mean? That's news for the Cowboys. You know what I mean?
And the one thing about Keon Coleman is that Keon Coleman is very athletic. He can make some really good catches. But when you're playing with a guy like Josh Allen, he doesn't necessarily have to beat, the cornerback or the man-on-man coverage every time. But when Josh Allen can move around in the pocket and get out of the pocket and extend plays,
especially in the red
zone,
zone,
a guy like Keon Coleman who can now, get open and then make some good catches, acrobatic catches, as we've already seen. So, I do like that for Coleman in that sense. That he can get open with Josh Allen running around, and he can kind of walk into 10 plus tutties. Like I said, I mean, I'm not doubting it. I don't believe that him playing the X is the best use for him. Like I'd rather him play like inside more in the slot, like, or move around a little bit. Like that'll be pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, is he the next Marquise Colston? That's actually a decent comp. Like I like,
Colston was
the way
really
that
good. He was a good
Coleman
red
can kind
zone.
of go up and get it. Kind of reminds you a little bit of
physical
Colston,
receiver.
Kinda
not
physical
fast,
guy,
not overly fast. Marcus Colston
right.
was really good in his days. Marcus Colston was solid.
Mm-hmm. Coleman is one of Smitty's moon men. Yeah. Like Coleman. Brian Thomas, I like too. I mean, we've seen what he can do with JD. I mean, basically led in touchdowns. Can he now continue that with T-Law coming through? We already saw a sick catch from Brian Thomas. I don't know if you saw. He made like a nice little, it was like a 30 or 40 yard, like little diving catch in between like two dudes.
I didn't see it.
Pretty sure it was a pass interference too. I think I think it's on my page in one of my
that LSU pedigree, man. That's enough for me, to be honest. Like I buy into shit like that.
No, I think he's way more athletic than a Sutton.
Yeah, Sutton's
faster.
Sutton's not what I would describe as athletic at all. What I will give Sutton credit for is that like this guy is like he's a contested catching motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like you kind of just throw it in his vicinity, he'll make a play on it. He kind of reminds me of like a poor man's Terry McLaurin when it comes to the hands. Yeah, because that's a trait I'll give Cortland Sutton as a receiver. He is one of the receivers that actually is a hands catcher. You know what I mean?
The thing with Keon Coleman is he's not going crazy early either. Like even with all the hype, like he's still decently priced.
Yeah, Kincaid goes higher than him for sure.
All right, I guess we're about to get up out of here. Throw any last second questions y'all got in the chat before we get up out of here.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all having me on.
Bro, it's been a minute.
Right? We're getting close to the season, so you know what I mean? Had to tap in with my guys.
Yeah, we're about closer to the season.
3 weeks away, roughly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 3
crazy.
weeks. This Thursday?
3 weeks from Thursday. Yep.
Yeah, let's go.
You know what's crazy too? We were talking about, Steve and I were talking about the last show, how the NFL is just monopolizing the entire shit. Like they got the Thursday game, then they got the Friday game, then they got the Christmas Day game. Now they just told the NBA to shove it, and they took Christmas Day. Like, what is going on? So NFL's not messing around. I like it.
Yeah, me too, man. Because I like football all week as much as possible, and I think it adds a great wrinkle in our fantasy management. Like you have to be able to that's part of the fun for me in fantasy is managing. You know what I mean? The rosters that we got. I mean, because it's when you got a player on a Sunday and he's playing a Thursday game, or you know what I mean?
Do you play this guy? Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Matchup.
I enjoy that that headache. Is that crazy?
You know what's wild too is that so those Christmas Day games. First of all, that's a Wednesday, so we're getting football on Wednesday on Christmas Day. That's wild, and it's actually on Netflix.
Cool.
Is it?
Yeah. Like
shit.
What is going on? They're just dominating Peacock, Netflix, Prime. They got it all.
Yeah, YouTube got their hands on it too, where you can get
crazy
YouTube TV and have it's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful day to be a wonderful time to be alive if you're a fantasy enthusiast. Because
what a time.
Before, I used to cheat. Like I was a season ticket holder, and back when my Niners weren't good, I used to make decisions like, well, you know what? I'll sell these tickets because fuck that game. I don't want to miss Red Zone. You know what I mean? But then it became like, oh, I got Red Zone on my phone. You know what I mean? Like I'll go to the shitty game. You know what I mean? Like,
now to be fair, they are fucking making us spend way more fucking money than we ever had to spend. You can't even just watch football no more. Like you got to have this streaming service and that streaming service, and it's fucking bullshit. If it's just one, like okay, but like bro, we got to have all of them now. We got to have Netflix. We got to have ESPN Plus to watch the fucking London shits. We gotta have other shit for Thursday night. Like goddamn,
yeah.
Fucking Peacock and all this
Plus.
Oh bullshit! What y'all take on the Gibbs late injury?
I got the big Disney Plus, so I can get that.
I mean, it's supposedly like a minor strain, but are they going to play it safe? Maybe the first few weeks he doesn't, he's not featured as much, but as we get into the season, maybe he is a little bit more.
Sell high on old Monty Burns right now.
You could. That's a good thing to bring up. That you could sell high on Monty. I've actually seen a bunch of people already talking about Monty and trying to go buy Monty because of this Gibbs thing. So yeah.
I mean, Monty, even without the Gibbs injury, is still pretty damn solid. Like as a third RB, but with the injury, that bumps up that value. Take advantage.
Yeah, I was out prior there. That's what it was. Looks terrible. Once Red Zone fires up, don't even call me, even if someone died.
I feel that.
Oh yeah, well, hopefully you get some guys. I mean, listen, the super flex. Don't forget about Bo Nix. Don't forget about Penix as well. Like, take some of the value.
Yeah, and I'd rather have a Bo Nix or a Penix than I would a Levis, because I don't think Levis is safe at all with his job.
No, I had one share of Levis. I got rid of him. I got rid of it this offseason.
Good for Bryce Young.
I took him as my QB3 in my home.
I'm not mad at that.
For redraft. Yeah, I mean,
redraft.
Yeah. You're good there. I don't think they've got Mason. They're not just gonna be like, oh, you know what, Mason Rudolph. I think you're the best quarterback we have.
Oh, you mean racist Rudolph? I was wondering.
It would probably take an injury to Levis for Rudolph to go in, or Levis will have to be really shit in the bed. Like, I guess that's a possibility, but
I mean, it is kind of funny that the first order of business for this new regime was they brought in a racist Rudolph and they got rid of Tannehill. You know what I mean?
Or hear me out. They get into a fight in practice and Rudolph clubs him with the fucking helmet.
With the helmet? That's his signature move right there.
Get clubbed over the head.
Yeah, he throws out maybe he throws out a white slur this time. Right?
Eric said, if Stevie B don't believe in you in Dynasty, that is bad. Listen, I didn't believe in Kenny Pickett, and that shit turned out to be very true.
Really small hands, that Kenny Pickett. He's trying to hide it with those two gloves.
I mean, listen, Levis was a second round pick. He was a guy that teams were already kind of straying away from. He wasn't a great processor.
Top of the league in ADOT last year. That's a big thing. 20
he
yards.
had one good game. He had that one good game, and everybody fucking lost their shit. That was the time to kind of sell him, but No, I don't believe it. I just don't think he's good enough. Like he's just gonna wind up being like, can he be a bona fide backup? Like, yeah, sure. I just don't see him being good enough to actually be
Just
like
another guy.
the franchise quarterback. He's a jag, just another guy.
Just another guy. I like it.
He likes a lot of mayo. It's kind of weird.
Bro, you know he
Oh,
has
and he's fucking weird. Yeah,
a mayo scented cologne.
yeah, and he's like weird as fuck
He
too.
wears
Like
a mayo scented cologne.
that's
He
gross.
has one. He like
you know
made
what's crazy is I guarantee
Bruh.
it's just mayonnaise that he sprays on. Like, I mean, like,
Oh, that's just, bro. That's a
That's
no-no.
gross. All right.
I
On
like
that
mayo
note,
on a
we
sandwich.
are.
I love mayo on a sandwich, but like this guy in his coffee.
That's about it.
He puts it on as a sunblock. Now cologne. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Right. Levis closes his eyes and something comes down with it. Yeah, I mean, you could just tell like he's not good in the pocket. Like you can just tell
He's not
like
polished at all.
he's not comfortable in the pocket. He's got a good arm. There's no doubt about that. But
that's about it.
With Brian Callahan coming over there, former OC for the last seasons with the Bengals, we saw what he was able to do with a Jake Browning. Gives me a little hope for a Will Levis. You know what I mean? You know, if his weapons can stay healthy, I mean, it already sucks that DeAndre Hopkins is down. You know, for what that's worth, because I think that's what I worry about him the most.
They don't have a Henry. They don't have Henry to lean on.
Yeah, and I'm not
how
the
good is
biggest
that? How good is that defense?
Yeah, because if they're shit, because think about this, Tennessee, last year they were giving up like 3 bills through the air like routinely. You know, but they're a funnel defense. It's harder to run against them. You know what I mean? I don't see that going away. You know what I mean?
I just don't know. Feels like a Kenny Pickett-ish situation where
Yeah,
he's just not going to be good enough. Like, and they've done a good job of trying to surround him with guys, but
yeah, even in bringing in Tyler
I could be
Boyd.
wrong.
Like Tyler Boyd's low key.
Would it be the first time?
He knows that system well.
All right, guys, we up out of here. We'll see y'all next week on Tuesday. Peace.
Peace.